This is Allie Emet. So I'm going to attempt to explain why it is less acceptable for a Black woman to date a white man. Some Black men have noticed this and spoken about it on social media, and I'm going to have to agree with them. They've noticed that a lot of Black women are getting into situations where they're dating white men or they're even married to a white man and they're still being left with children. The problem with this to Black men is that they're not hearing Black women who are in favor of interracial relationships. They're not hearing those women speak about these situations. Not only are white men leaving Black women with children, they're also abusive towards certain Black women. They've also shown themselves to be covert racists, which I'm sure it wasn't really that covert, because certain things you really cannot hide in an intimate relationship. What ends up happening is one person is going to have to sacrifice their identity for the sake of the other person. When it comes specifically to interracial relationships in terms of Black people and white people, okay? Now, the reason why it's more acceptable, or it seems more acceptable, for a Black man to date or marry a white woman than it seems for a Black woman to date or marry a white man is because in the situations where Black men get with white women, it is usually the white woman who is willing to sacrifice her identity. And I know some people might say that's a bunch of BS. I've seen these Black men just kind of abandon the Black community to step into the white community or these white neighborhoods and be with these white women. And I'm not disagreeing with you in those situations. I've seen them too. But he is more willing to sacrifice himself than a Black woman will be when she's with a white man. Do you understand? We did recently see a video come out by a biracial Black woman. I would consider her mixed race more so than Black, but I know a lot of people will consider her Black because her phenotype more closely resembles that of a Black person. But she is in fact mixed. She is half white and half Black, or half European and half Black. But anyway, what came out of this is she's showing in this video that her boyfriend, who she was apparently with for several years, her boyfriend was actually a racist. Now, here's the thing. Why did she need to make that public? Why? It's not like she didn't already know that he had these tendencies. It's that she had a problem with these tendencies. And you might say, well, why shouldn't she have a problem with these tendencies? The reason she shouldn't have a problem with these tendencies is because she chose to be with him, knowing that he had those tendencies. You see? And that's what I mean when I say that Black men are more willing to sacrifice themselves when they're placed in that situation. Now, I think by and large, more white women are willing to sacrifice their identity to be with the Black man. But in the situations where the Black man and the Black woman are a little more educated, they make a little bit more money, they travel in circles that are more predominantly white, then yes, the Black man is the one who is more willing to sacrifice himself. He's more willing to sacrifice his identity as a Black person, even though he can't escape his Blackness, clearly, but he is willing to sacrifice his identity. He goes to these places, he's at the country club, he's on the golf course, he hears the comments, he hears the racist, innuendos, and he hears all the covert racism and undertones, but he is more willing to sacrifice that so that he can travel in those circles. And you're not going to hear him really complaining about it. That's the choice he made. Now, here is the young lady I was talking about, whose ex-boyfriend at this point was making these racist comments because she voted for Bernie Sanders in the primary, and I believe he was a Trump supporter. Now, they're no longer together. And after they broke up and she entered a relationship with somebody else, then she decided to expose her ex-boyfriend as a covert racist. And see, the issue that I have with her doing this is her intentions and her motivations. It's not to show Black people, look, when you date interracially, this is what you're going to have to deal with. This was not a word of caution. This was not a warning. This was not enlightening. This was just her trying to smear her ex because of something going on between the two of them. This had nothing to do with Trump supporters. This had nothing to do with white people or Black people. This is just their screwed up relationship and the residual effects of their screwed up relationship and revenge. She did not expect it to go viral. She was just putting it up on her profile just to embarrass him. Now, I'm not making excuses for him. I could not care less about him, and I also couldn't care less about her. My issue is Black people's responses to it. Now, see, a lot of Black men and some Black women understood, the message that Black people could take from it, and Black women specifically, Black women who want to engage in interracial relationships. This is a cautionary tale. You see, underneath what seems like a post-racial society, underneath this supposedly progressive culture, we still have these issues. It doesn't matter who you think your boyfriend is or your husband is, they still have these ideas and these thoughts, and they will use it against you. It's also to expose it to people who might not have actually ventured out and gotten into interracial relationships, but maybe people who are just curious about it. And they might be listening to certain public figures who have said, look, interracial relationships are good for Black women. And there are certain Black people, both men and women, but more so Black men, that are saying, look, don't do that. This is what's going to happen to you. Because the point is, this is not the first time that he said those kinds of things to her. This was not a surprise. That's why she picked up her phone and recorded him. This was not the first time. And she said so much in her interview with Crystal and Karazin, and I'll link it in the description box. Unfortunately, it's a terrible video. It's a terrible interview, but there are a few things that she exposes about herself throughout the interview. And one thing that she exposes is that she had heard him say these kind of things before, and she kind of tries to use him having a personality disorder as a cover for his racism, when it actually has nothing to do with him having a personality disorder. And I'm not even convinced that he does have a personality disorder. I'm more tempted to believe that she might have some issues than him. And again, this isn't to defend him. Like I said, I could not care less about either of them. The takeaway from this particular incident is simply that Black women, you really can't get it twisted. I mean, are you willing to sacrifice that? Are you willing to sacrifice yourself and your identity as a black woman to that extent where you're willing to take that? She was willing to take that. She was willing to take that for several years. And she just jumped into another relationship with another white man. Okay. She's not going to date black men. She has said as much. She will not date black men. She dates white men. And I mean, the woman has issues. She said that she's half Portuguese. Her current beau is Portuguese. He's I just wonder if she understands the history of Portuguese people in relation to African Americans. But anyway, I'm not here to bash Portuguese people. It's just she has problems. She has problems. And my point is, black women, do you have these kind of problems? Are you willing to sacrifice your identity as a black woman to this extent where you're willing to take these kind of comments? Because this was not a surprise to her. I cannot stress this enough. It's not a surprise just because she put it up on her Facebook profile. This is something that she knew about, and she continually engaged in the relationship with him for years. So are you willing to sacrifice that much of yourself? If you really think that black men are getting called all these niggers and all of these other disparaging racial remarks by the white women that they're with, that ain't happening. That's not. I mean, it's just really not happening. If it does happen, it really is a surprise, and it's really the straw that broke the camel's back, and then the relationship is over. But time and again, you see these black women getting into relationships with white men who are not even on their level. As that woman said, he wasn't making as much money as her. She was typically the breadwinner in their relationship. And I believe, if I heard her correctly, she said that she was taking care of his children. I mean, these are all situations that black women claim that they're looking for white men so that they don't have to deal with these things in the black community. But it's the same thing. Look, you're not getting good white men, okay? Whatever that means to you, you're not going to get that. You're going to get these, uneducated, unprofessional, non-money making white men. And for some of you, you have so many problems with yourselves, so much self-hate and self-loathing that you're actually getting some kind of kick out of the idea that white people or white men are inviting you into their community or giving you a seat at their table. But you're not even noticing that you're not really even at the big table. You're at like the kiddie table, and they're eating the main dish, and you're getting the crumbs that they drop on the floor. Like, it's really not a good look, black women. And that's why it's less acceptable. Now, I did speak about that woman and her, little viral video with her covert racist ex-boyfriend. But in my mind, I'm thinking of so many black women that I know in real life who have gotten married to white men who are not on their level. I mean, not on their level education-wise, not on their level financially, not on their level professionally, not on their level emotionally or mentally. They're just beneath. They're just beneath these wonderful black women. And the problem that a lot of black women have with the case that we're making, we being people who are against these unions, the case that black women are making in their defense is, well, what are we supposed to do when black men won't marry us, or when we outnumber black men? And I understand that that's kind of a conundrum and that's kind of a problem. I don't think that there aren't solutions to these problems. Some of them are solutions that you might not be ready to consider, and some might be solutions that you're not willing to consider. But that is definitely a discussion for future commentary. It's not something I'm going to talk about right now. I just wonder what these black women are going to teach their mixed, biracial, multiracial children. What are you going to teach them about their blackness, especially if they're males? If they're males who look black and they have a white father who may or may not have racist tendencies. I mean, this is a serious situation. You know, what are you going to do? Are you going to teach him to be pro-black? Are you going to teach him to look down on black people? How are you going to teach him how to navigate through the world as a person of color when his own father isn't a person of color? I mean, his father is the person who's supposed to guide him through the world, and he can't. He can't even teach him how to approach the world as a person of color. And that's what happens. You see these little privileged, little like mixed kids walking around, and then they're knocked on their behind when they're treated like a nigger. And it's all because, you know, daddy didn't know any better to teach him about it, and mommy is acting oblivious, like, oh, it's just it's a new world and these beautiful little tomorrow people. That kid is still not white, and that's pretty much all that matters. When he goes outside, nobody cares who his dad is. And I just wonder if that's anything that black women have considered. I mean, I think a lot of you are just hoping that you'll get with white men, and then you'll have little multiracial, biracial, mixed little girls, and they'll have little spiral ringlet curls, and then they'll be the chosen females, you know, for, you know, good, educated, little sharp black boys that you never had the opportunity to be with. But you can't live out your fantasies through your children. You know, I hate to say it, but that is narcissistic. Okay, you can't separate that child from their individuation. They are their own person, and you have to mold them into someone who is self-sufficient and independent. And some of you are going to severely hurt these children with your delusions about interracial relationships and about racial relations in this country. And who are you raising them to be with when they get older? Oh, I forgot. Just be with whoever you love. Listen, most of you are searching for white men and searching outside the race because you were taught that same exact thing from your mother. And now you never really learned any real tools about how to choose the right type of mate. And so you become embittered because you've run into a lot of, jerks and creeps and men who have exploited you and used you and treated you rotten, and they're wrong for that. But you still haven't learned the lesson. And now you want to go out there and you want to get with white men as if he's some kind of solution. And these white men, they're just trying to exploit you. They're covertly racist. They're going to throw it in your face eventually. Some of them might even kill you. I do think that some black men use this stuff to their advantage, to be provocative and just get views. And that's wrong. That's definitely wrong. But what I'm saying is, don't ignore the overall message. I mean, I don't care how cool this white guy seems, you cannot separate him from his whiteness any more than you can separate yourself from your blackness or from your womanness. I mean, you're a black woman and you're not going to stop being that just because you have a white man next to you in bed at night. It's not going to change your life. And then you have a child and your child is mixed. That white man does not change his child's life. That child is a person of color. I might not call that child a black person, but some people will, and they're certainly not white. And this is a black and white America, okay? Nobody cares if you look kind of mixed. You're still not white. You're not a white girl. You're not a white boy, and they're going to have to understand how to navigate themselves through that world. I mean, some of these mixed kids are looking at white people through your eyes, thinking that white people are so great and white people love them. I mean, this is how you guys are talking. White people love black women. White men treat black women so well. That's what you're going to teach your children, and you're going to set them up for a world of disappointment. So, by and large, this is the reason that it's really frowned upon. On top of that, it's also frowned upon because black women seem to use the idea of getting with a white man as some kind of remedy for their problems with black men. And I'm not going to say that black men don't do the same thing. They're wrong for that too, but you're wrong as well, black women. And for those of us who don't think that interracial relationships are the way to go, and I truly don't think it's the way to go. And that's just how I feel in terms of creating families and creating black legacy, creating black wealth, creating black power. That's just how it is. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and not take pride in who I am. I want to continue my race. I want to continue my legacy. I think that is healthy. I think that is totally normal. And I feel like everybody else on the planet understands this. It's just a part of survival. And for some reason, like Black Americans, not even just Black Americans, not even, but, us, Black people, we just seem to be like severely affected by this white supremacist society to the point where we're just becoming very delusional when it comes to race. I mean, it's not a game out there. So what I'm saying is those of us who don't think interracial relationships, interracial marriage, and biracial children are the way to go, that's why we frown upon it. We frown upon that. We frown upon the idea of Black women using their wombs to bring forth life that is basically going to dilute and kill the Black race, because like I said, you're still having a person of color and they're less likely to get with a white person. They're more likely going to go toward the Black people. I mean, there's all kinds of Black people who just want to open their arms to these biracial, multiracial, mixed race children. And that's diluting my race. I mean, that's not how I'm raising my children. I mean, that might sound harsh, but I'm not. I'm not raising them to get with mixed race children. Now, at the end of the day, I can't control what they do as adults, but I do have control over how I rear them. I mean, who are your children going to be with when they get older? Now, my advice to you is that your mixed race children, this is for those of you who have already done this. You've already interracially dated, interracially bred, and you brought forth mixed race children. I think you need to find a circle of mixed race people to network with, and you should just raise your children to get with other mixed race people and just create their own people. That's what I think. But as far as, getting with black people, that's harmful to us. Even historically, I mean, politically, it's harmful. It's harmful for us as black people to have a bunch of mixed race people representing us also. I mean, it's just, it just doesn't work for me, black women. I mean, that's the issue that I have. That's the way I see it. But I mean, you black men, it's the same thing as far as, mixing and how to create, sustaining black communities and handing down black wealth. I don't want your mixed race children anywhere near mine either. I mean, they could be friends. But anyway, how much are you willing to sacrifice yourself, black women, for the sake of these white men, for the sake of saying you have an Asian man on your arm, or an Arab man on your arm, an Indian man on your arm, a Hispanic man on your arm? I mean, like, how much are you willing to sacrifice your own identity? Because I know behind closed doors, I don't care if you're out at one of their family gatherings or it's just the two of you chilling at home, I know they have said some slick, racist remarks. And you guys sit around and you debate about it and get into these little heated arguments, and then you run into little Facebook groups and ask other black women how to educate your white man about race relations. I've seen it. I just saw it the other day. How to educate him. I had to really stop myself from getting kicked out of a group because it was ridiculous to me. If you feel like you have to, sorry, I don't want to get ahead of myself. Who wants to live like that? This is who you married and who you're going to spend the rest of your life with. Why would you sign up for a lifetime of educating somebody about white privilege? First of all, this is what I told her, and this is all I told her so that I didn't end up getting kicked out of there. In this day and age, there's a ton of information out there. So if he's really interested, he will educate himself. And of course, these other black women came and said, I disagree. You don't know the world unless you engage in it. And you're not going to learn everything from a book. First of all, the clueless woman came in here asking how to educate him. So yeah, that's how you educate people, with information, not with, bullshit discussions about how you feel. But of course, I looked at her profile. She was married to a white man also. They all had the same like really ridiculous, really ridiculous ideas about how they're going to educate and enlighten these white men about race, as if these white men give a fuck. Like, okay, let me just really lay it out here for a lot of you. The reason that it's really frowned upon is because it's embarrassing. Because everybody knows the fucking game. Everybody knows that you get with these white men because these white men are searching for women and they can't find anybody in their own circle. So what they do is they settle for black women. Okay? They settle for black women because first they couldn't find a white woman they liked, and then they went a rung or two under, and they still couldn't find even a white trash woman that they could deal with. So then they went and they looked for an Asian woman, and they couldn't find an Asian woman they could hang with. And then they decided to go and hang out with Latino women, and they really couldn't find a Latina. They couldn't find an Indian. They couldn't find an Arab. They couldn't find anything out there. And so now they found you, the educated black woman. And they do. They usually tend to get with these educated black women, varying degrees of attractiveness. I don't really rate women's attractiveness. That's not my thing. But, some people say that they're usually very attractive black women. I mean, they're nice enough looking. but they're usually always like very articulate, educated, intelligent, professional black women who are making lots of money. So they'll get with her. Doesn't even matter if he is a broom slinging janitor, if he's an attorney, although he never is. I've never seen it. I've never seen just a straight up upper echelon type of white man hanging out with a black woman. It's always like a middle class, working poor, lower class type of white man with a black woman. These black women have master's degrees, they're professionals, they make six figures. I mean, it's just fucking embarrassing, okay? And then you bitches are running around asking us how to educate this motherfucker. Like, are you serious? Like, how fucking desperate. And then on top of it, you all are like delusional enough to believe that you're changing the fucking world. See, the black man doesn't do that. The black man does not get with white women or Latinas or Asians or anything. He doesn't get with any other race of woman thinking he's going to save the world and educate this bitch. He's getting with her because of the benefits he gets from the relationship. But you bitches don't even get benefits. You don't even get benefits from these relationships. And I'm really sorry for speaking to you like this, but it's out of frustration because I just don't understand how you don't see it. And that's why it's frowned upon, because it's so fucking embarrassing. I mean, you're like sitting there like kumbaya moment, like I'm saving the world, we are the world, having this like moment, and it's bullshit. Are you serious? That you tell me that your you're telling me that your white husband that married your black ass never went and got himself educated on African studies or black studies or nothing? This motherfucker doesn't care. I mean, like, really? Doesn't he know he's with a black woman? Oh. No, he doesn't. Because you've completely sacrificed yourself. And see, if you want to sacrifice yourself, you just want to be that delusional little token, that's not my business. Just like if a black man does it, it ain't my business. But the black man doesn't do it and then come running back to black people asking, why is my white bitch racist? They don't do that. You all do that. Y'all pretend that race doesn't exist and nothing matters. You sacrifice your complete identity for the sake of this white person. And then when the white person shows himself as the racist, white supremacist that they are, then you come running back to black people talking about, how do I educate him? How do I help him? How do I show him? That's why it's frowned upon, because it's so fucking embarrassing. You made your choice. Live with it. Live with it. Black women, stop taking care of white men. I mean, I don't care if you're taking care of them financially. I don't care if you're taking care of them emotionally. I don't care if you call yourself educating them, broadening their horizons, enlightening them, showing them the way. Stop taking care of white men. I mean, at least get the benefit of the relationship. Don't get me wrong. I'm totally against it. I'm totally against it. I'll say it one more time. I'm totally against it. But this is the reason why it's frowned upon. When the black man gets him with the other race of women, he goes over there and he deals with it and he handles it. He doesn't come running back over saying, how do I teach my Indian chick not to call me a nigger? I mean, he doesn't do that. You all do that. And this is you taking care of him, okay? And it's silly and it's stupid. I mean, obviously you just shouldn't be with him. Why in the world would you sign up for a lifetime of educating your oppressor in how to not oppress you? Or educating your oppressor on how to be less oppressive? Or educating your oppressor into being more open-minded about us poor little darkies? That's how you sound. That's what you're doing. I mean, there must be something to that. I mean, you must like think you're so special or think you're so smart that you're in the position to educate white supremacists out of their supremacy. Is it just delusional? Maybe it's just delusional. I think that might be why it's truly frowned upon, because it is delusional. But Make no mistake, these white men, they will leave you. I'm not trying to scare you. I'll tell you a little story, and then I'm going to be out because this is like very long at this point. I'll tell you this little story. I used to go to school with this white guy. He's actually an Italian. And one day he came into the cafeteria and he just decided he wanted to show us all his Christmas pictures. He had spent Christmas with his son and his baby's mother. And everybody was like, we didn't know you had kids. He said he didn't have a kid. He just had one like a couple months ago. Lo and behold, his baby mama was black. I mean, very much so, dark-skinned sister, lovely looking, nice smile. What he explained was basically that he had an on-again, off-again relationship with this woman. They'd been on-again, off-again for years. I mean, like a decade. And he intentionally moved her onto his block. He owns his own place. And he was in real estate, so he found another spot, bought that spot, moved her onto that spot. Not that he's paying the bills or anything, he just moved her onto that area. Gets her pregnant, intentionally, and now they co-parent. And his words, I don't have to worry about getting married to her, because I already have everything that I need. I mean, she's a black woman, single mother. She's happy to have the help. I get no problems out of her. Trust me. That's what he said. He said, she's happy to have the help. Trust me. What struck me about that story was the fact that it sounded just like every other random ratchet Negro baby mama baby daddy story, with the exception of the fact that the man actually found her some real estate and moved her down the street from him. I would say that's probably the only different portion. But it sounded just like everything else. And you should have, I mean, it might have been for the sake of the picture, but you should have saw a big ass smile painted on this lady's face. She's up there under the Christmas tree with her baby daddy and their mixed race child. And this guy is talking about how he set it up like that. He completely manipulated the situation, I guess, in his favor so that he could basically have access to this woman who had his child for the rest of her life without her actually being his wife or his girlfriend. Not his wife, not his fiance, not his girlfriend, none of that. Just, she has my child. I mean, they've been on again, off again for years upon years. They're going to continue to be on again, off again now forever. Because what? He set it up like that. And the thing about it is, I bet that woman is content. I bet she's content with him popping over every other day, having a little bit of sex, having a little bit of a daddy-baby bonding time, and then dipping out and doing him. I mean, just because he's like a white man. I bet you. I bet you she is just content with that. And that's the idea that some of us are getting from some of these women that claim that they want to go their own way or they want to swirl. Because, like, the thing is, even though I'm against interracial relationships, you know, to me, that is just not the way that our people should be doing things. But as in terms of people just genuinely, authentically getting together and organically building a relationship, and you happen to be different races, I mean, I can't really say too much about that because people are always going to do what they want to do. But when people start waving banners like, I'm going my own way, I'm going to white men, and I want to swirl, I mean, to me, it just sounds like you're down for whatever. You're down for whatever. It doesn't matter how this guy treats me as long as he's not black. That's just how it seems, because we see these type of situations where women are dealing with covert racists, where women are dealing with men who won't commit, where women are dealing with men who are putting them in the same exact baby mama, baby daddy, struggling ass situations. And the only difference is that he's not black. In fact, the only difference is that he is specifically white. I mean, the guy could be broke, he could have no education, he can come from a white trash family, he could be verbally, mentally, emotionally, physically abusive, he could be mentally disturbed, he could be non-committal. Doesn't matter. I mean, he's not black. As long as he's not black, that's crazy. That's why it's frowned upon, ladies. That's really the reason why. Because I just don't really think that we're gonna see that on the other side. I could be wrong. I'm gonna put that out there before I leave you. I'm gonna put it out there that I could be wrong. If you see stories where white women are abusing black men and black men are just sitting there in the relationship for years, then let me know. Please let me know. They settled for black women because first they couldn't find a white woman they liked, and then they went a rung or two under, and they still couldn't find even a white trash woman that they could deal with. So then they went and they looked for an Asian woman, and they couldn't find an Asian woman they could hang with. And then they decided to go and hang out with Latino women, and they really couldn't find a Latina, they couldn't find an Indian, they couldn't find an Arab, they couldn't find anything out there. And so now they found you, the educated black woman.